Last week, what we talked about was the affirming that anything that comes in the world starts with thought. And we know that as Unitics. We know that everything starts with thought. And then we looked at our world and we said, really? Well, there's some things there that don't seem like I would create that. And then we talked about, are we creating from fear or are we creating from love? And then you had a homework assignment. And the homework assignment was to look at your life and situations and then ask yourself whether you were creating from fear or creating from love. How was that as a tool for you? How many of you were able to look at that? Okay, a few. Did you find it helpful? Okay, great. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to follow on from that, because at the end of last week's talk, I talked about it's all about aligning in love. And today we're going to look at, well, what does that really mean? What are we aligning to? What type of love are we aligning to? And are we willing to give up suffering and pain? Ooh, what? We got a choice. Yes. So what I'm going to talk about first is congruence, because we talk about congruency throughout this series. And so I just wanted to remind you of what congruency means. So congruence is the state of being in harmony with something. And what we want to be in harmony with is divine love. Now, some of you, when you think of love, you may think of this. No, I love you more. Right? So we're not talking about that type of love. That love is known as eros love. Right? And usually it's between spouses or partners. It's also between familial connections. So mother, father, child, siblings, that kind of thing. Love in which we have this feeling of connection and a sense of belonging to. And I'm not talking about agape love either. Because sometimes agape love, in its purest sense, should be this unconditional love for all people. But often it gets tainted with, I'm doing these things and I'm looking for acknowledgement. I'm doing these things and there's almost like a little scorecard of, well, if I do this should kind of be recompense for what I did that wasn't like this. So I'm talking about something higher. So I'm calling about a higher love. Are we going to break out in song? No. Send me a high. Okay, all by myself there. That's all right. So we're talking about a higher love, a love that is unified with divinity, with our Creator, with God, with the allness that we are. And through that, we are looking to align ourselves in that, because in aligning with that, we know that there is only truth, there is only joy, there is no pain, there is no misery. So then the next question comes, well, how do we get in alignment? And there's this wonderful quote that I found in the book, and it is from page 134 in the book. And it's basically a reminder. One of the things that I love about this book is the phrasing that comes through. And this really is a reminder. It's a reminder that you are an aspect of the Creator, but your sense of flow and being in alignment with the frequency can shift, and does shift depending on your availability to be in alignment with it. Now, alignment, we will say again, is your congruence with it in frequency. So that sounds like a lot of talk. What is that really saying? What's it really saying is we're talking about frequency. And every time I talk about frequency, I do the analogy to radio waves. Everyone's familiar with radio waves, right? We know how it works. It's beamed out, right, from a tower, goes through the space. We don't see it, but it has different frequencies. But what we do is we get those radio waves on our radio tuner, right? In the olden days, we used to tune in to that frequency. Now we just push a button into that particular frequency. And depending on what button that we push, depends on what we receive. So if I'm listening to rock, I'm going to tune into the rock frequency. If I'm listening to jazz, I'm going to tune into the jazz frequency. If I'm into NPR, I'm going to tune into NPR's frequency, right? So that's getting me into alignment with whatever it is that I want to listen to. So let's say it's jazz, because I love jazz. So I'm aligning into jazz. Now, when I'm listening and I'm just like in bliss over the songs that come through, now I'm in harmony with that frequency. With me? Okay, good. Now, whenever we are engaging in consciousness, whatever we engage with is an activation. So think of it again as the radio. You push that button. In this case, I'm pushing the button, I'm activating jazz. I'm activating jazz. And then when I'm grooving in that jazz, I'm now incongruent with it. Yes? Okay, so we all have frequencies, don't we? Guess where those frequencies come from? Towers. Well, our own personal towers, Jesse. I see you back there hiding out. Yeah, he's back. He's busting my chops again. I love it. All right. Where do our frequencies come from? How do we emit frequencies? Thoughts. Our conscious thoughts are how we emit frequencies. Hear that. Our conscious thoughts are how we emit frequency. Think back to 2001, 9/11. There was a huge shift, wasn't there? People were feeling fear. Fear and retribution, fear and retribution, fear and retribution. And what happens? Right? Energetically, collectively, those frequencies combine for collective consciousness, right? And it joins together, and we're at war. We've got the war on terrorism. Our frequencies are really powerful, and they're not something that we want to just poo-poo and say, oh, it doesn't matter, we don't see it. Powerful stuff. I'm bringing your awareness to this. And you're probably thinking, so why do I care? Why do I care? Well, this quote is a wonderful summary of why we need to care. We do this work, first of all, to honor ourselves as divine beings and to realign ourselves to the possibility that we can manifest in this way and for our own highest good. And we also do this to support a vast transition that is taking place in consciousness. A vast transition that is taking place in consciousness. So you know all that searching and seeking that we do? We're it. We are what we seek for. You are what you seek for. You are perfect. Perfect. Not when you lose 20 pounds. Not when you get your hair done. Not when you finish your degree. Not when ... Now. Perfect. You are what the world is waiting for. You are the gift, the light. You. And we often forget this. We often forget that when we are in that divine light and energy, there is no pain. There is no suffering. Guess who creates the pain and suffering? We do. We do, that's right. Thank you, Buddha. We do. In our separation, we create that pain and suffering. There's this video that I found, and I edited it down, which really has an interesting depiction of the journey of the soul. So I'd like to play that and see what you think about it.
Once upon a time, I, the soul, the being of light, live in my home, the home of all souls. My Father, the highest of all beings, also lives here. In the midst of peace and serenity, at some point a stirring happens within me. This stirring pushes me to come down to a wonderful new world to play my part. The new earth is beautiful and bountiful. I am new, like a fully loaded and supremely charged battery. I am also totally aware of my truth, of my true identity, a being of light energy. Time passes by. Since I am a soul within a physical body, I begin to change. My battery is no longer supremely charged, but I am still fully charged. As a new being on earth, I am still aware of my true form, a being of truth and a powerful soul. My body enjoys the full potential of a self-aware soul. I am full of love, peace, health and happiness. Then a shift begins. I forget myself, my true identity. I create many little false identities, little I's, possessions, talents, wealth, beauty, strength. I begin to identify myself with these I's, that these are components of my whole being. I become body conscious. The biggest evidence of this shift is I begin to experience sorrow. Comparison and competition became a common phenomenon. My little I's become my complete identity. The world that I once came upon becomes divided. Different languages emerge. The idea of religion, such as Islam, Buddhism, and Christianity, grows and attempts to lessen the feelings of conflict and sadness. Yet sorrow and pain continue in the world. By this time, I totally forget my original identity. From being soul conscious, I am now totally body conscious. I lose my original qualities of peace, purity, power, wisdom, love. My transformation into a physical being is almost complete. My battery is almost completely drained. Everything around me becomes corrupt, polluted, and degraded. In the midst of this chaos and immorality, God, our Father, the Supreme Being, comes to us. Ultimately introduces us to ourselves, to our true, original self. Begin to recognize our true selves. The soul, a being of metaphysical light, very much like our Father, the Supreme Being, divine and complete.
What'd you think of that? That was interesting. I got thumbs up in the back. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. It's a reminder, the reminder of what and who we are, right? That we are an aspect of God, of divinity. And as such, I can choose to love as God. You can choose to love as God. We can choose to see the world through the eyes of God. We can choose to see the world through the eyes of love. But the most important thing is starting with ourselves. That we love ourselves. That we see the truth of what we are. And ultimately, that we forgive ourselves. Why is that so important? Because when we are able to forgive ourselves for the things that we say and do that are not in alignment with our truth, that are not in alignment with our divine nature, we then have the capacity to forgive other people. You see, some of the troubles that we have in the world right now are our projections of our own unforgiveness of self to other people. So if I am uncomfortable, let's say, with my sexual orientation, and I see that as something that I haven't forgiven myself for, or it's an abomination, then I am going to do what? I am going to attack what I see, because it's a reflection of me. Do you see that? So it's real important that we start with forgiving ourselves. And then the question always comes up, well, why does God allow this? Right? And this is a really good summary that I found from the book, and that is on page 162. The Ascended Master says, God does not create pain. God does not align to pain. You do. And as you create through your fear, you create trouble. But the pain that is in the world now is the result of thousands of years of conscious restriction that has borne the pain and suffering. So we're doing this work to awaken to the reality that we have a choice, that we can choose, right? We can choose. We can choose to be responsible for the lives that we've created. We can choose to be responsible for the world that we've created, for the community that we've created. But what's interesting is that many of us still choose pain. Why do we choose pain? It's something that we know. We know what pain feels like. It's comfortable. It also affirms our beliefs about how limited we are. Hear that. It affirms our belief about how limited we are. And you'll be like, oh, I'd never choose pain. Well, I got to tell you, I have these really comfy pair of boots. I love these boots. They're so comfy, and it's like I can walk and walk and walk and walk in them. And every time I wear them, my back goes out because there's no support. There's no support whatsoever. And I look at them, and then I go, ooh, they're so comfy. I'll try that again. And the same thing happens, right? We're in that of normal. This is normal, and we have choices. Not just on that level, but on a spiritual level, on a spiritual consciousness, to change how we see the world and how we choose to be in the world. Now, the place that we do a lot of the damage is in our relationships with each other. And there's a lovely quote here from page 197, and it says, I can stand in reprimand of anything and assume myself to be in truth. You know I got to read that again. I can stand in judgment of anything and assume myself to be in truth, and that is self-deceit. However, reprimand and judgment, which bring forth self-righteousness, do not feel like unforgiveness, but consequently have the ability to keep you tethered and bound in similar ways that will block you from aligning to love. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, we have to use our judgment faculty, when we make decisions in the world. Yes, but that judgment faculty is really about discernment. In our society right now, judgment has a negative connotation, and it's about condemnation. Condemnation. You are wrong. And I'm here to tell you, to stand in your truth, no one has to be wrong. No one has to be wrong for you to stand in your knowing. No one has to be wrong to stand in your knowing. So what's ours to do? You have some homework. You know you do. Your homework this week is to take a look at your relationships. See how you are interacting in your relationships and ask yourselves, where am I standing in judgment with this person? Where am I standing in judgment with this person? Second step, why am I in judgment with this person? What am I getting out of this when I stand in judgment of this person? And then the third step is to make the decision to allow yourself to release from that judgment. Step 1, where am I in judgment with this person? 2, why am I in judgment with this person? What do I get out of it? And the third one, am I willing to release? Am I willing to allow myself to release? So I'm going to ask Cindy to come on up as we finish this talk, and she's going to prepare us for meditation. And in meditation, I just want to do a little attunement with your frequencies today, if you'll allow me, when we do meditation.